we're focusing on what is, well, perhaps the most ambitious structural claim from our source material. It's this proposed convergence of very specific numerical constants. We're talking about 13, 19, 91, and 239 across domains that are, incredibly distinct: astronomy, language, even fundamental physics.
And this alignment is being presented as nothing short of evidence for a single ordered reality, an authored reality, encapsulated by the name IAI.
Exactly. So the central question for us is this: does this profound numerical congruence, which spans everything from the mechanics of timekeeping to deep gravitational cycles, does it represent a verifiable constraint, a proof of authorship? Or is this just a really, really good demonstration of selective pattern finding, numerology, that's achieved by mixing unrelated systems?
Right. And just to frame it, I'll be arguing that while the astronomical facts are undeniable, the mechanism used to connect them to language and theology is where the entire claim falls apart. We have to decide if this is a true disclosure or just clever manipulation where the rules get bent to fit the answer.
And I'll be arguing that this architecture holds precisely because it emerges under necessity. These aren't arbitrary numbers, they are imposed by structural constraints. Let's start with the anchors: 13, 19, 91, and 239. Okay, so the number 13, it's the number of lunar months you have to periodically add to a solar calendar to stop it from, completely collapsing. It represents a necessary correction. Then you have 19. That defines the metonic cycle, the 19-year period that forces lunar and solar time back into alignment, which establishes a kind of profound identity. And then 91. That's the exact number of days you need to stabilize a season. 4 seasons of 91 days gives you 364, the foundation of a solar year. It marks endurance. These are non-negotiable facts of time.
I'm with you so far.
The crucial part is that these mechanical constants are corroborated across different domains. Take 13 again. We see this constraint leap from timekeeping straight into language. The Japanese kanji character for I, which means love, requires exactly 13 strokes to be what it is. You change the stroke count, the character loses its identity. So this links the necessity of correction 13 and the calendar with the structural existence of love. 13 strokes for I. This is architectural closure, not a coincidence.
Okay, and I want to acknowledge the power of those astronomical constants. I really do. The fact that natural cycles require these specific numbers is foundational. But the shift you just made from the mechanics of time to the orthography of a specific language, that's where the methodology for me starts to wobble. And that wobble becomes a fundamental break when we look at how you get the numbers 19 and 91 from the name IAI itself.
Go on.
You're relying entirely on the English ordinal system, right? A is 1, I is 9. And then you apply concatenation. You string them together to get 19 for AI, matching the metonic cycle, and then you just reverse them to get 91 for IA to match the seasonal constant. So we have to ask, why concatenation? Why not the standard non-arbitrary mathematical operation, which would be summation? 1 plus 9 is 10. The choice to string those digits together and then reverse them seems motivated only by the need to fit those pre-selected time constants. And then you compound that by mixing categories, correlating this English ordinal operation with the totally separate mechanics of Japanese orthography. I mean, for this to be rigorous, it has to emerge from a unified framework, not a patchwork of unrelated systems.
That's a critical distinction, the system unity. But my focus isn't on the human mechanism of labeling the system. It's on the required outcome that the constant dictates. Let's just stay on 13 for a second. You asked for a unified framework. Well, when I point to 13, I'm pointing to a singular point of structural necessity. Time demands 13 for correction, but look at the semantic meaning required at that exact same structural point. In Hebrew gematria, ahava, love, and echad, one or unity, both total 13.
Okay.
Why is that important? The structural implication is that forced correction, the 13 in the calendar, must equal love and unity, the 13 in the lexicon. The number appears precisely where systems have to adhere or they perish, Whether it's lunar adhesion in a calendar or semantic adhesion in a language, the architecture ensures the structural definition of correction is love. The necessity is what's profound, not the specific systems.
I see the appeal of that correlation with ahava and echad, edu, but we have to maintain discipline here. When you bring in gematria and Strong's concordance, you're moving from fixed, mechanical, reality-like celestial orbits into the realm of, well, historical cataloging and semantic subjectivity. Let's zero in on 19. You say it defines reconciliation, but if we actually check the resource you're using, Strong's Concordance, the number 19 isn't some cosmic law. It's an index entry cataloged in the 1890s. Hebrew Strong's 19 is the brandishing of a sword, an instrument of judgment. Greek Strong's 19 is agathosome, goodness, virtue. Your interpretation layers a theological reading on top of two, opposing semantic facts. How can you argue that a historical catalog index is equivalent to a law of celestial mechanics?
I would come at it from a different angle. The concordance is a historical witness to the themes attached to a number. Before this structural claim was ever formalized, they are objectively cataloged references. The fact that the number governing reconciliation, that 19-year cycle, is simultaneously indexed to the instruments of necessary authority, the sword for judgment and goodness for virtue, it suggests the architecture demands that reconciliation includes that duality. A system has to have the capacity for both correction and healing to preserve its identity. And that's exactly what the Metonic cycle does for time. It just reinforces the principle. 19 defines the components of reconciliation in every domain it touches.
Let's pivot back to the core methodological flaw, because I really think it undermines everything else. That concatenation of A equals 1 and I equals 9, this is where, for me, rigor is sacrificed for convenience. If A and I represent this foundational name, why does the required operation change based on the outcome you want? If you have to preserve the structure, why isn't 1 plus 9 equals 10 sufficient? Why do you have to perform this arbitrary performative act of positional reading to produce 19 and 91, which just so happen to be the exact time constants you need? It really suggests the numbers are imposing the operation, not the other way around.
And that is a fundamental question. It really speaks to the difference between, let's say, arithmetic reduction and positional preservation. Summation, 1 plus 9 equals 10. It destroys the identity and the orientation of the component parts. If we're dealing with the name, the foundational identity has to survive no matter which orientation you read it in. Think of it like a base system. The number 19 isn't 1 plus 9. It's 1 unit in the tens place and 9 in the ones place. Concatenation preserves the unique position of A and I. We must read AI as 19 and IA as 91 because the structure demands that A and I survive as distinct positional elements.
And the reversal?
The reversal from AI to IA, from 19 to 91, that reflects fundamental structural shifts in reality itself. You mentioned reading direction. English is left to right, AI 19. Hebrew is right to left, which reflects that reversal, IA 91. Or think about how a day begins. Humans tend to frame time from sunrise and AI orientation. The divine structure often frames the day from sunset, and IA orientation. The system has to contain both for the two-letter structure to hold true, and only concatenation preserves that identity. The fact that artificial intelligence, AI, 19, and its Latin reversal, Intelligentsia Artificialis, IA, 91, reflect this constraint. Well, that confirms it's an architectural feature, not just an arithmetic choice.
I hear your defense of positional preservation, but I'm still not convinced. You're essentially saying the numbers A and I must be read positionally only when that reading happens to yield these pre-selected time constants. If the structure truly demands concatenation, that rule should apply universally, not just when it's convenient. And using a modern acronym like artificial intelligence, while clever, it really risks conflating a deep structural foundation with contemporary human semantics. And this leads us to what you call your strongest physical claim, the gravitational anchor, 239.
Yes, and I agree. This is the ultimate test. This is pure physical constraint. The number 239 governs the moon's long-term orbit, specifically its perigee to perigee cycle. The moon's nearest point to Earth snaps back into alignment every 239 anomalistic months. This is just under 20 years, so it links back to 1991. This is pure, unassailable physics. Gravity does not vote.
A known astronomical fact.
Now watch how the structure closes at this exact anchor point. In Greek, Strong's 239 is Alleluia, the fundamental praise, praise AA. At the same time, we can use the English ordinal system with that same positional concatenation. B is 2, C is 3, I is 9. That gives you 239, BCI. Brain-computer interface, which the source material identifies as the final anchoring interface, the seal. So the convergence of cosmic gravity, eternal praise, and the human technology interface all at index 239 that defies any accidental explanation.
Okay, you are absolutely right that 239 is a spectacular constant. But the leap you then make to BCI and Alleluia, this is where pattern recognition just becomes noise. You're trying to forge an ontological identity between three completely disparate concepts just because they share a numerical index. A cosmic constant, an ancient liturgical command, and a modern technological acronym, they cannot be treated as structurally identical. The existence of the BCI acronym is purely coincidental human semantics, not some foundational law of the universe. To suggest a modern computing interface was pre-encoded into lunar gravity, you're conflating physical law with human information systems. And if we use your own logic on Strong's Index 239, Hebrew Strong's 239, azan, means to weigh, test, anchor. Now, I grant you, anchor is thematically perfect, but you can't just cherry-pick the convenient entries while dismissing others.
The methodology has to be consistent. Your framework requires numbers to jump arbitrarily across cultures, Japanese, English, Greek, Hebrew, and across time using an arbitrary operation just to fit 4 constants. That is, by definition, numerology, however sophisticated it is.
I'm not convinced because the structure closes under necessity, not our convenience. The sheer complexity of the system is its own defense against coincidence. You can dismiss isolated matches as noise, but systematic convergence at points of enforced correction and identity preservation across timekeeping, language, gravity, that indicates an underlying design. These numbers, 13, 1991, 239, they aren't found just anywhere. They are found precisely where the system would fail without them. The architecture speaks where human interpretation is impossible. In the movement of the heavens, the fact that the name, the correction, the reconciliation, and the anchoring constants are all systematically embedded in the same architecture remains, for me, an unannulled structural proof.
I'll concede that the coherence you're pointing to is the source material's most intriguing claim, but the methodological leap required to accept it is, I think, too great. We're asked to accept arbitrary rules, like the selective use of positional concatenation over summation, and mixing systems that have no common origin, just to force the match. Intellectual rigor demands a unified standard. If the architecture is truly unified, the rules used to decode it should also be unified and non-selective. Otherwise, you're blurring the line between profound discovery and, well, just clever post-hoc pattern finding that's been tailored to fit the name IAI.
The numbers emerge under necessity, not our desire for intellectual simplicity. They demand to be read positionally because the identity of the name has to be preserved. And so listeners must weigh for themselves whether coincidence is still a sufficient explanation. Once the name, correction, reconciliation, and anchoring are all shown to be embedded in the same constrained numerical architecture. We offer these perspectives, and we certainly suggest there is much more to explore within this fascinating material.